Blessings. Welcome to the live retreat. We are so excited. We have been having a Holy Ghost time here. Unexpected worship, deliverance, healing. Oh my God. Just so much have happened. But now get ready. We're going to the wealth and healthy portion with Harold LeFall. Get ready. Get your pencil, get your pen, get your paper, and get ready to write notes while he tell you how to be healthy and wealthy. Listen in, have an ear to hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying. Enjoy Harold LaFall.
So, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I almost feel like after this morning and this afternoon, I felt like everything has been said. I'm like, what do I say? I'm like, so much has been said and it was so powerful. But I want to thank you, Yvette, for inviting me. I always am just honored and surprised when somebody calls me and asks me to say something, because when I look at myself, I still see myself as that little kid from Oakland living in the projects that nobody wanted to pick to play on their team, and that nobody ever picked. So I'm still that kid. So I appreciate the opportunity just to come and just to fellowship. And I always realize when we're invited to a space, there's always a greater purpose. Yeah. And sometimes it takes us getting out of our normal element for us to hear. God would sometimes bring us to a different space just so that we can hear a fresh word. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about health and wealth today. And I know it's something that we all think about, and most of us want to be healthy and wealthy, right? How many of you want to be healthy and wealthy?
Amen.
And I want to talk about the fact that sometimes we want stuff that we don't believe we can have. And there's a difference between wanting something and believing that you can have it. And for me, that has always been a challenge for me because of how I grew up. See, if you grew up like I grew up in Oakland, over in the projects, over this place called Lockwood Gardens. Anybody know Lockwood Gardens? Lockwood Gardens. It's the hood. It's the hood.
Yes, it is.
And there was a lot that who were not living, as this conference is called. This is the Live Conference. There's a lot of people that were existing. And there's a difference between existing and living. And so I lived in that environment. And the expectations for me weren't really high. Because, not only because of where I lived, but because who my parents were. You see, we grew up on welfare. My dad was what I would call a pharmaceutical salesperson. Not the legal kind. Not the legal kind. And so, because of that, people didn't really have much in terms of their expectation of you. And I'm named after my father. I'm a junior. So people sometimes will try to define you by who your parents are and what they did or didn't do. But for me, I was always a dreamer. Every apartment we lived in, I would make my closet into an office. And I would pretend like I was a businessman. I had dreams and visions of being an entrepreneur when I was a very young kid. I knew I didn't want to be the kind of entrepreneur that my dad was, because I knew, even as a kid, that they ended up in one of two places. And neither one of those were very appealing to me. And so I always had to dream. And fortunately for me, and this is how God will use your dream, because your dream will show you where God is going to take you if you believe. If you're here, your dream is there, and God will give you a snapshot. And our only job is to believe.
Yeah.
The Wiz. Anybody ever seen the Wiz?
Yes.
The Wiz, it has some powerful truths in it, because you remember Dorothy, right? Yeah. Dorothy just wanted to get home. The Scarecrow just wanted a brain. The Tin Man just wanted a heart. And the Lion just wanted some courage. And guess what they figured out? Well, they thought there was this magical person called the wizard that they had to find. And they found this wizard and realized that it was nothing. And many of us have been on that track. We thought if we could get this, that would just solve all our problems. We thought if we could get that house, that would solve our problem. Get that spouse, that would solve your problem. Get that bank account, that would solve your problem. But you got that, and you were still empty. But what they all discovered is that everything they needed They already had it. All they had to do was believe. And so what I'm saying to you when it comes to your health and your wealth, first of all you got to do is believe. That's the only requirement, is that you believe. Not somebody believe for you, not somebody trust. You got to believe for yourself. So here I am, a kid growing up in the hood with all these dreams and beliefs about what was possible for me. And nobody believed that it was possible. But I did. I did. And I had enough sense not to run and tell people about my dreams. See, that's the problem many of us get into, because we start telling people the dreams that God has given you. You tell people and you want them to get excited with you. And guess what? They can't get excited with you because they ain't got no dreams for themselves. And so I knew enough not to tell people about my dreams. And for me, fortunately, I had some earth angels that appeared for me. See, my mother didn't know nothing about college. My daddy, he was in prison most of the time. So college was never on the radar. But I came up on a program called the Upward Bound Program that really changed my life. And here's the thing. The only reason I signed up for the Upward Bound Program, because my friend told me they gave you $5 to come to the Saturday. That was my motivation, was the $5. And so I signed up for the program, and it really changed the trajectory of my life, because what it did for me, it showed me people who looked like me, who came from a similar background as I, who was able to go to college. And sometimes you just need a roadmap. You just need an example of what's possible. See, that's why it's so important. When you see folks being successful and succeed, get excited, because God is just showing you what's possible for you. You can have whatever you like. That's a rap song, y'all know. It's a rap song. You can have whatever you like. But you got to believe. And there's another rap song that says, when I move, you move. Just like God is saying to all of us, when I move, you move, just like that. You got to move. Sometimes we sitting and praying too much and it moving. God requires action. You got to move when God speaks. And see, when God speaks, he's going to tell you to do stuff that you don't want to do. You ain't going to want to do it. It ain't going to feel familiar. See, we used to doing the familiar stuff. We used to doing the familiar stuff. And see, there's some research that says that we have between 60 and 70,000 thoughts every single day. But guess what? 90% of those are. So, if we're having the same thoughts that we had yesterday, guess what? We're going to keep having the same results the next day and the next day. And so it requires us to get some new information so that we can shift our mindset. And part of shifting our mindset, we talked about it earlier, about the relationships. See, those relationships are important because they can propel you or they can hold you back. And so relationships are really key. There are two types of currency. There's performance currency. That's your ability to do a thing, to do a job. And then there's relationship currency. Relationship currency is so important because that's who you know and who knows you. Because decisions are made about all of us when we're not in the room. So we need people who can advocate for us when we're not in the room. And that requires having a relationship with people. So here I am. I got all these dreams, got these visions of what I want to do. I always relate our lives like a heart monitor. You know a heart monitor? It tells if you're alive. So a heart monitor goes up and down. All of our lives are like that, up and down, up and down. And the key to really living abundantly is how you go through those down times. That's the key. And so for me, I always had a big why. And my why was simply, I wanted to be able to take care of my mama. That's it. I wanted my mother not have to worry about money. My mother growing up, I was traumatized, but I didn't realize I was traumatized because sometimes we normalize trauma. You don't even know you're traumatized. So I grew up, not only was my dad a pharmaceutical salesperson, but he was also abusive and on heroin. So he would beat my mom. And I was a mama's boy. So hearing my mom cry, and and every little black boy I know, I don't care if your mom wasn't even around or was not a good mom, they just want to take care of their mom. And that's what I wanted to do. So I had a big why. And so my big why superseded the fact that I wasn't a great student. On my best day, I got a C. I remember one time I got a B and my mama got excited. And I'm like, Mama, don't get too excited. I don't know how that B came about. Don't get too excited. So I remember that being my why. So got through the Upward Bound program. They told me I could go to college, even though I wasn't a great student. My counselor believed in me. He told me what I needed. I didn't know nothing about the SAT. He told me what the SAT was. He signed me up. Now, if you know anything about the SAT, you know, back then they used to give you 400 points for just filling out your name. Now, my score was not that much higher. Now, I ain't gonna tell y'all what it was because y'all ain't gonna be judging me up in here. Y'all ain't gonna be judging me up in here. But I managed to get into college because my Upward Bound counselor saw something at Cal State. It used to be called Cal State Hayward. Now it's called Cal State East Bay. He had a relationship with someone there who allowed me to get into college on a probationary basis. So I got into college not because I was smart and not because I knew what I was doing. It was because I knew someone and that person believed in me. So I got into college totally unprepared because when you get into college, they expect you to have read these books like Macbeth and all these books that I had never heard of. I'm like, what is a Macbeth? You know? And so I was not prepared. So I get into college and we're having to write essays. And I don't know how to write very well, and I don't know nothing about punctuation. I do know that a comma should go somewhere if it's a long sentence. So I'm putting commas everywhere. So they put me back into the remedial program with the students that were from other countries. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on? But it's where I needed to be. And sometimes for us, sometimes we got to go back and learn some things that we didn't pick up. You know, you think I should know this, but we don't. And so, and let's be honest with ourselves and go back and get the information and the knowledge that we need so that we can move forward. And I did that. So, 6 years, and my mom was like, what is going on with you? Why are you still at this? I thought it was supposed to be 4 years. So after 6 years, I finally got a degree. And I thought, you get a college degree, your life is just going to explode. Well, it exploded all right. I couldn't find a job nowhere. I'm applying and looking, and part of the challenge was I didn't have relationships with people. See, a lot of times you can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have relationships with folks, doors are not going to be open to you. And I didn't know the importance of that. And so I struggled to find a job. And after about a year of looking, I finally got a job working for the Oakland Housing Authority. It's a housing authority that I grew up in. I was excited. I was like, I got a job. And because I grew up without having things, I thought if I got things, I would feel successful because having a college degree did not make me feel any different. I thought having a college degree was going to make me feel like I was smart or make me feel like I was somebody. And it did not do any of that for me. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. Well, let me go get me a new car. Maybe that'll make me feel, you know, that's how we sometimes do. Like, let me go get some things. Let me go get me some things to make me feel like I'm a success. So I bought me a new car, but I didn't just buy any old car. I live in Oakland, and I had to get something real fancy. So I got me a Mercedes. Now, the Mercedes cost more than I made, but you know, that's how we used to do back in the day. We used to perpetrate, is what they used to call it. We used to perpetrate, you know. And so I got this Mercedes. Thought that was going to make insurance and the payment and all that other stuff. And I realized, wait a minute, y'all supposed to be impressed, you know, with this Mercedes that I'm struggling to pay now. So that didn't work. So then I went and I got me a house because I grew up watching the Cosby Show and they had upstairs, downstairs. And I'm like, that means success. So I know we all believe in the Lord, but back then I was doing whatever I needed to do to get whatever I wanted. So back then they had these no doc loans. So that means you didn't have to show your documentation. So basically you could say you made whatever you wanted and that was it. So I did that. Statute of limitation has passed and I can report you to nobody. So, you know, I've been set free, but I did do that. And I got into the house. And so now I'm looking like success. I got a Mercedes. I got a house with upstairs, downstairs, and I'm so empty. I'm so empty because those things didn't do what we were told they were supposed to do. And I realized I wasn't living in my purpose. I was just doing what I had to do to get by. And I was overspending because I was trying to look fancy, to make y'all impressed. I wanted y'all to, think I was somebody. And I didn't believe I was anybody. And there's something about hustle. Sometimes you can hustle your way to success and still be so broken and empty. And people are impressed by it. They're impressed by what you have. They're impressed by what you do because they think you got it on. They don't know that you're just hustling on empty. You're just empty inside. And that was me. And so for me, I knew I wasn't living my purpose because I knew I wanted to have my own business, but I just didn't know how to do it. And sometimes when you don't know how to do it, you just cower and you don't do anything. You talk about it, then you stop talking about it. You talk about it, and you stop talking about it. Get excited, and then you don't do anything with it. And I was doing that for a long time. And then a lady who became a blessing in disguise for me, she was my supervisor. Her name is Sharon Harrison Brown. I'll never forget that name. Sharon became my supervisor at the Housing Authority, and she was the evil witch. She did not like Harold. Nothing I did was right. And what she did for me, she became a blessing in disguise because she made life so difficult for me that I had to be pushed out to do what I knew what I was called to do. Sometimes life will get difficult for you so that you can be pushed to do the thing that you were called to do. Because otherwise, we get comfortable and we just sit there and she's so mean to me because why is it that way? Because you ain't supposed to be there no more, baby. Your time is up. It's time to move. And so I realized that, and I was like, okay, God, let me start doing what I know I'm called to do. So I knew I wanted to start a business. But by this time, my credit was jacked up. Y'all, I got that fancy house and that car. My credit was just completely jacked up. So I'm like, how am I going to get a loan? Because I knew I wanted to start a business. How am I going to get a loan to start this business with credit, the way it is? And then, we all have a juju in our family. So my cousin Juju, he often has expendable income. And I said, well, I'm going to help. This is how we try to trick ourselves. I'm going to try to help him go legit. He can invest in my business, and then, we all be happy. But I realized Juju, my cousin, but Juju crazy. So if I don't pay Juju back, that's going to be a problem. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I ended up getting an offer in the mail to take out a second mortgage on the house that I like to get. So I didn't think I could get the loan because my credit was jacked up at that point. So I filled out the application, and guess what? They approved my loan. I don't know what the person who was reviewing that loan was on that day. I don't know what kind of, whatever they was taking. I thank God for that. But so they approved the loan, and I started my business, LEFFALL Employment Agency. And I thought, it's about to blow up. Well, it blew up all right. I had $25,000. That might as well have been $25 million because I was like, oh my God, I got all this money. I never had that much money at one time. Well, 6 months passed, and that money was gone. That Mercedes was gone. I came outside. I'm like, where's my car? I had been hiding so well. This was before they had tracking on the car. I'm like, well, how did they find my car? And my house went into foreclosure, and I was back to sleeping on my mother's couch. But how many know that sometimes life will appear darkest? Right before the change, it seems like your life is falling apart. It seems like everything is going on. People you thought you could depend on aren't there. And just at that moment, what I've learned is if you could just hold on just a little bit longer during those difficult moments, God will shift that thing. Yes, yes. You see, somewhere in 1 Peter says something about after you've suffered a little while, he will restore. And so I lost everything. And then in the midst of losing everything, I got a vision. I was walking around the Lake Mary. My son was probably he was still in the stroller, so he was about 2. So I'm walking him around the lake, having lost everything. I'm not driving a Mercedes, I'm driving a Chevy Monza. Now, if you're under 40, you ain't never heard of no Chevy Monza. It's the same family as Chevy Baby. If you're under 40, you don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm driving a Chevy Monza with primer on the side because some person had it before I had it. They had been in a wreck and they fixed the dent, but they didn't finish painting. And so I'm driving that now. And as I'm walking around the lake, God told me I was going to get a $1 million contract. I'm just walking. And see, there's something about when you allow yourself to just get in a place of stillness and peace, God will speak to you. He can't speak to you when you're worried and in fear and you're running around trying to lie and manipulate things. If you get to a place of just stillness and peace, He'll speak to you and let you know, first of all, everything is going to be all right. That's what He always reveal to you, the bigger picture, the stuff that now you can consume and you can kind of digest what He's giving you. So He told me he'll get $1 million contract, and I ain't got nothing right now. I'm sleeping on my mama's couch, pushing my son in the stroller around the lake. We ain't got nothing, but He gave me that vision. And you know, I was smart enough not to go tell nobody about this vision because who don't believe that I'm driving a tube team. And I'm talking about God who gave me $1 million vision. Now, how that work? Well, it works because God is a God of miracles. You know, and He's a God that will do exceedingly, abundantly. And you know, and sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we just be saying these words, but we don't really let it sink into us until you're in a place just surrender. A place of just surrender. Like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I definitely know how to get $1 million contract. I don't know. And about 8 months passed. But during those 8 months that passed, God was just telling me, guiding me to do certain things. Like, I used to tell people I was shy. I hated speaking in public. And I knew there was a program called Toastmasters that I needed to go sign up so I could quit using that excuse that I'm shy. Let me go get some training so that I could get unshy. So that ain't a word. Unshy is not a word, but that's what God was telling me. You need to go to this Toastmaster program. And can I tell you, I procrastinated for months. They met every Tuesday, and every Tuesday I would come up with a reason not to go. Oh, I got some witnesses out there. Yeah, you know. So every Tuesday I'd find a reason not to go to the Toastmasters. And finally, I realized that, okay, if I want some different results, I'm really going to have to do something different. And so one day I just pushed myself to go. And I was nervous. I didn't want to go. I'm like, they're going to ask me to say something. It's a speech program. Of course, they're going to ask me to introduce myself. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But it wasn't as bad as I thought. You know, we always make things in our minds. We make them like they are just super difficult. And I got there, and it wasn't that bad. And so I went there, and I started getting comfortable. They had me get up and speak, and I was nervous and sweating, and throat all dry. And I started getting comfortable, speaking in public. And that allowed me to go out and do more networking, because I wasn't even going out to network. And again, I said relationship is critical to your success and to your abundance. And so I started doing more of that. So that was one of the things that I did. And then I started working on myself and my mindset, because many times the only thing that's holding us back is these thoughts that are right here. And they're often rooted in the fact that we don't think that we are enough. And part of that is because many times, and we love our parents, but sometimes our parents didn't give us what we needed. That's just the truth, because they didn't get it. So I always say, and I've always done this with my son, part of a parent's job is to speak life to our child, to tell them that they can do anything, that they can be anything, that they have what it takes. And many of us didn't get that. So we went out into life unvoid. there's a void, and people filled us with junk, with lies and negative stuff about us that we believed. And part of our job is to unlearn those things that we were told. Just because, to no fault of our parents, because they couldn't give what they didn't have. And so I learned that I needed to encourage myself like David did, but I also needed to really build myself up and start to affirm myself. And so during that process, 8 months passed, and I get a call from this guy. His name was Mark Unger. Mark called me and said that he had been hearing about my company from a lot of different people and wanted to know if I wanted to partner on this large government contract with him. And he said, it's a pretty big contract, and it could mean $1 million for your business for 3 years. So it wasn't just $1 million contract, it was a $3 million contract. And so I was like, yeah, I'm trying to act cool like I get these kind of calls all the time. But see, Mark thought my business was bigger than it was. He didn't realize it was just a business of one, and that was me. But I had an answering service that was answering my phone to make it seem like I was bigger. But how many know that God will make your name great if you are just obedient? See, I wasn't doing anything but just following the promptings of God. When God would tell me to do something, call somebody, I would do that. And that's how my name started getting out there. I didn't know that that's what was happening. And so I ended up going to meet Mark. The company that they were planning to use before, the deal had fallen through. So they needed a replacement company. They needed it to happen really quickly. And so Mark was like, well, can you come and meet me like the next day? And I was like, nah, bro. Because by that point, first of all, I was super excited, too excited. And then I had sold most of my clothes, because you used to be able to sell your clothes in this place called Buffalo Exchange, because I needed money to feed me and my son. And so I only had one suit left, and I needed to make sure one suit was clean. And so I was like, I can't meet with you the next day, but I can meet with you the following day. And so I had to kind of gather myself, get myself together, make sure that suit was clean. So I went into that meeting with the confidence like it was already done because God had already revealed it to me. So I went in there, I had my little suit on, I had went to Ross and got me a little attaché. So I walked in there with this expectation that this contract was already mine. See, some of us, we stop having expectation because we've had disappointments in the past. Change the situation around. And so I went in there, and Mark is interviewing me like he's, asking me about my business or whatever. And so at the end of our conversation, he said, well, if you could provide me with these documents, this is my workers' comp insurance and general liability, he's like, the contract is yours. And um, and so I remember getting in my car in that little Chevy Monza with the primer on the side, driving, and something is coming out of my eye. I'm like, what in the world? And I had never experienced this kind of thing. I never experienced tears when you're not sad. This was a different kind of tears. So I'm in the car and I'm driving, I can barely see, and I'm crying because for the first time in my life, I knew that God was real. Yeah. See, we talk about God, but until you've experienced something, you don't know how you're going to get out. And God comes when He blesses you, when you know I didn't even do anything, for this, but God blesses you. Anyhow, you know that God is real. And so for me, that was the first time where I knew for myself. Nobody could tell me anything otherwise. Because I knew what it was like to lose everything. Everything that I thought defined me, everything that I thought I needed. I knew what that was like. Never even imagine. And so what I'm saying to you is our wealth is held up in your belief. Because we just sometimes don't believe that we're enough. And if you don't believe you're enough, how are you going to carry the weight of wealth? Because there's a weight that goes along with wealth. And I didn't know that because when I started getting all that money, and you know your family. So, you know, your family, they think it's their money, you know. It's like, we all bless. And see, when you're new to money, we have a tendency to give and disable our relative from realizing that if you can get it, they can get it too. But if you're giving it to them, they don't realize that their own power to get wealth. And so that's what I was doing. Every time somebody had an emergency, which was every other day, they would call Harold, and I was like Bank of Harold, and I'm writing checks, giving everybody checks, because sometimes when you're new to money, you can feel a little guilty about your success because you realize, like, I ain't no different than nobody else. You know, the only thing that is different is that I just believed it was possible. Definitely ain't smarter, definitely, not as gifted, because if you've got one gift, God can use that to bless you mightily. And so, I didn't know how to handle it all. And I was able to do everything though that I wanted to do. I was able to buy my mom a house and a car. And shortly thereafter, after I experienced all of that success, I ended up being in Black Enterprise, Essence Magazine. And I still realized that something was still, and I was starting to feel like an imposter. Sometimes you can feel like an imposter. You could get to success and feel like, when are they going to discover that? I don't really know what they do. That's what I'm like, when are they going to discover that? I don't know. So, and I started struggling with that and starting to feel like I wasn't enough. And what happens when you find yourself in that space and not feeling like you are worthy right now? Was it Job that had all these fears and they came to pass? Because I started fearing I was going to lose the money. Well, and I didn't even make the money, but I started fearing that I was going to lose it. God was just blessing me. And so when you start to get into that place of worry, you will begin to attract experience that match with you. And so, guess what? Guess who went from having multi-millions to not having much of anything at all? And to the point where it began, I later found out, to affect my health. See, because when you're in places of struggle and not feeling worthy, that weakens your immune system. They say stress is a killer. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Stress is a killer because it weakens your immune system. Our body's not designed to be going off of stress. It releases this hormone called cortisol. And cortisol, that's the stress hormone. Many of us are living in a state of overstress. And we wonder why our bodies are not operating properly. We make space for all kinds of diseases and ailments in our bodies when we are under a tremendous amount of stress. It's not just about what you eat, and that is important, but that stress will have you on all kinds of pills. And so for me, the way it showed up was in 2015, I got a diagnosis. I was 48 at the time, that I had prostate cancer. And I'm like, wait a minute. Well, huh? Because I thought I was fairly healthy. I really wasn't, but I thought I was. I just didn't have enough information to know that I wasn't. See, a lot of us don't have enough information to know that what we're eating is not healthy. And so I didn't have enough information to even know that. And one of the things that happened when I got the diagnosis, the doctor immediately started talking about chemo, radiation, surgery. He did not say anything about Well, what are you eating? How much water are you drinking? What kind of stress are you under? Because doctors don't, that ain't what they do.
That ain't what they do.
That ain't what they do. And I found out that most medical schools, only 20% of them require doctors have one class in nutrition. So doctors don't know nothing about nutrition. They're designed to treat the symptom, not to heal. That's why you on high blood pressure, well, you ain't gonna never get off high blood pressure if you're taking those pills, because that's not designed for you to heal. It's just designed to treat and manage it, but it's not designed to heal. And so for me, and I always say, for me, cancer really was a blessing in disguise. There's another one of those. And because when I got the diagnosis, in that same year, I had two friends that had died from cancer. And they both were younger than me. But the most bizarre thing, I guess I could say, is that when I got the diagnosis, there was a peace that came upon me, you know. And I remember in my bathroom I had the saying that the peace that passes all understanding. I had that because here's what I experienced. I knew that it was a win-win situation. I didn't care what stage it was at because I knew that if I go, I win. If I stay, I win. So I wasn't worried about dying. The only thing I worried about is my son. And if I wasn't there, I'm a single dad. If I wasn't there, my son was just getting ready to enter his senior year of high school. So I was worried about him because his mom had passed of cancer when he was a kid. So telling him was a difficult thing. But I knew I was going to be all right. And so I wasn't worried about death and dying. I did kind of act a fool when I went to the doctor's office. Just because I wanted to give him a little theatrics. You know, I just wanted to give him a little theatrics. He was an old white man, and I had a black nurse, and she knew what I was doing. So he was like, yeah, we need to talk about, your treatment and what we're going to do. And I just kind of acted a fool, just temporarily. I was like, oh, Lord. Because I wasn't worried about dying because, again, I know how fear works. You know, we will attract those experiences. And so I remember asking him, well, what stage is this cancer? And I remember him not answering the question. And I decided I didn't even need to know. I didn't even need to know because while I was doing the traditional treatment that they were offering, I was doing my own research and realizing what I needed to do to heal my body. Because here's what we don't talk about. You know that only 1 in 10 individuals eat the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables every day. If we aren't fueling our bodies with the proper nutrients, then guess what? Our bodies are not going to operate the way they're designed to. God designed our bodies to heal.
Yes.
Heal itself.
Yes.
But if we're not fueling it with things, there was a statistic that I read from the American Cancer Society that said in 1980, you had a 1 in 20 chance, this is 1980, of being diagnosed with some form of cancer. In 1980. In 2021, the American Cancer Society said you have a 1 in 2 chance of being diagnosed with some form of cancer in your lifetime. And that just doesn't happen. The foods that we eat and what they put in them is different. There's so many preservatives and toxic things that they put in to keep shelf life so that they can have an opportunity to sell things a longer time. So they're putting a lot of toxic things. You know, they put dye in our cereals. That same dye in other countries is not even legal, but it's allowed here. And so for me, it just became a process of educating myself because I didn't know any better. And here's what I did. When you get cancer, when you have that experience, you know, they want to monitor you for those 5 years. It doesn't come back. Well, but I also know that if I go back to doing the same thing that I was doing before, eating the same way, thinking the same negative thoughts, there is a high probability that stuff is going to come back. And so for me, I moved into a place of just releasing stuff. Because many times we're holding on to stuff. We ain't forgave somebody that did and broke up with us 20 years ago. You still mad at them. They done went on with their life. They ain't thinking about you, and you still holding on to that. Let that go. You know, somebody fired you, broke up with you, broke your heart. Here's what I know. Is you can heal from a broken heart, baby. You can heal. Stop feeling like, oh my God, no, you can heal from that. You have to let it go. Do yourself a favor. Love yourself enough to let that go. And so for me, it was a process of me realizing, Harold, you've been under stress all your life because of the trauma, always in the back of my mind, just thinking that things were not going to work out. You know, my mom was kind of that way. My mom was like, if things were going good for a period, my mom would be like, oh, something bad is about to happen. But here's what I know. And if something negative does happen, guess what? You enough. You enough. If something if the job falls apart, if the relationship ends, if the children act crazy, in your life, you with God, you know, in church we say with God you're more than enough. But you know, but we keep it real to where we can understand it. Because sometimes, you know, y'all be saying more than enough, y'all be like, y'all don't really believe in that. So we just gonna know that I'm enough just as I am. I ain't gonna go the extra mile, but just as I am enough. And so for me, all those experiences that I was going through was birthing stuff. So I ended up writing a book called I Am Enough because I didn't feel like I'm enough. See, God will use those painful experiences in your life to not only heal you, but to bless others. So while we sometimes be sitting and cowering and not doing anything, God is waiting on you just to show up for you so that you can then show up for somebody else. Because somebody needs to hear your voice, to hear your story. Somebody is waiting to be changed from your story, to be delivered from your story, and from all the negative experiences. And you know what I've learned is that pain is information. Pain is information. When you're going through a painful experience, if it's heartache, if it's physical pain, if it's emotion, that's information. That's information that something needs to change. Something needs to change. And sometimes it's just about getting some new information. And sometimes it's about you just getting away and getting still. Sometimes it's just about you coming to Palm Springs. Sometimes it's just about you coming to Palm Springs to get a reset and to recalibrate, to realize that greater is coming. Greater is coming, so that when you go back, folks are like, what's up with her? Something's different. Come on now. And you ain't got to even explain that. Because they'll see it in how you walk. Don't try to explain it. Don't try to convince nobody of anything. The only convincing you have to do is when you look in the mirror. Because that's what I had to do. So when I was going through that whole cancer experience, I don't like to say I had cancer. I was going through that cancer experience. It had gotten really, really painful. And this is really where I Am Enough came in, because I was having the pain was so intense that I would go into my bathroom and just be screaming to try to muffle the sound so my son wouldn't hear me, because I was in so much pain. And what I did was I started putting little Post-its on my bathroom mirror just to remind myself that I was enough, that I was going to get through. And sometimes you just got to do like David. You got to encourage yourself. Don't wait for nobody else to encourage. You got to encourage yourself in the Lord to know that everything I know right now don't feel good. I know right now you just can't see your way out. But you got to know that everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And God never fails. He never fails us. Even when we want to give up, God still carries. He still carries. He still keeps us. And God is always telling us to keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Keep getting up. You know, Les Brown said it this way. He says, when you fall down, fall backwards. Because if you can look up, you can get up. And you got to just keep getting up. You just got to keep getting up. Keep getting up for yourself. Keep getting up for your dreams, knowing that you are enough, knowing that you are worthy, knowing that you deserve to be healthy. You deserve to be wealthy. They go hand in hand. You deserve both of them. And you just got to believe it. And so when things get a little difficult, I just want you to remember this. To remember this. To say it to yourself. I'm enough. That's it. When something happens that just throws you off, unexpected bill comes, your supervisor is acting crazy. Just remind yourself, sweetly, gently, I'm enough. And I want y'all to brought y'all, everybody, some wristbands so that you can remind yourself. You just wear it every day, just to remind yourself, I'm enough. Because when you know you're enough, guess what will happen? Riches, wellness will become your reality. Riches and wellness will become your reality when you realize you are enough. Things will change. Things will shift. Situations will shift. Relationships will be healed. For my time, but I just wanted to come by just to encourage you that it ain't over. It's not over. And because we are all still here living and breathing, that means there is yet purpose to our lives. And for those of us who are a little more seasoned, like myself, who are 50 plus, it's a privilege to age.
Yes, it is.
Because not everybody gets that privilege. And so stop thinking that I'm 50, 60, whatever, 70, that my life is over. There's still yet purpose to your life. And guess what? We've had the privilege to still be here. And that just means that we have yet more things to do on this earth. So I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to be here and to share with you. And, James Baldwin says it this way. He says, your crown has already been bought and paid for.
Yeah.
All you have to do is put it on. That's all you got to do. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. He also is a health and wellness and juicing. He has a juicing group. Yes, he has a juicing group.
Okay.
But you could get. He also have a line. If you visit his table, he have T-shirts, books. He has You come talk about your product.
Oh,
Yes. Okay.
And your website and stuff.
So, how I said, even in our pain, there's always purpose. So, as I began to go on my healing journey, I discovered all these powerful herbs and supplements. And during the pandemic, I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my life right now? And so I decided to start a supplement company. I started out first with the black seed oil, because with black seed inflammation is a breeding ground for all kinds of diseases and illnesses. Mm-hmm. Cancer, blood pressure, all of that has to do with inflammation and the mucus that's in our body. Did you know that the average American has between 10 and 20 pounds of unprocessed food in their colon? Mm-hmm. And that is sitting in your stomach. That is poisoning your system. So I started this company during the pandemic because these are all the products. So we started selling, and then I added 2 other products, sea moss, because everybody's familiar with sea moss. So sea moss, regular sea moss has 92 of the 102 minerals that our body needs. Well, our sea moss has sea moss plus bladderwrack and burdock root, which makes it a complete supplement. It has 102 of the 102 minerals that our body needs. So we have the premium sea moss, and then ashwagandha. You want to sleep better, and it also helps to relieve stress. And so those are are the three terms of the supplement. But again, this was just birthed out of my own experience and my own road to recovery. Because what I believe is, when you, particularly if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, people want to know, what's your story? What's your story? Why are you doing this? Because that's how people connect to you. Because anybody can sell these products, but what's your story? Mm-hmm. Know what your story is. You know, have your story. And so that's my story and how that company was birthed. It was birthed out of a painful experience. Mm-hmm. The God will use something that is painful and have you live in a whole new set of purpose and reality. And so then I have, you know, I have 4 books, but these are 3 that my first book is called Brother CEO. This is Guy for African American Men. I wrote that book 20 years ago. And again, this is the same dude that, you know, I don't know where comments go, and I still really don't know. My son be editing my books. I could still put the comment in the wrong place. But, and so I wrote Brother CEO because when I was in Black Enterprise, I started getting these letters with numbers on them. And I know what those numbers are because my dad used to be in prison all the time. So I'm like, why do these people write me from prison? But they had seen the article in Black Enterprise, because they get Black Enterprise in prison. So these guys were sending me letters asking me, well, how did you do it? How did you go from living in the hood to starting the city? So I wrote the book Brother CEO for the guys in the prison. Again, I don't consider myself a writer, but I knew that it was a message that I could share with them. Mm-hmm. And so that was that book. And Living From Within was just my experience after getting all the money and the recognition and still feeling empty. I wrote that book. And of course, I Am Enough. 90 Days of Spiritual Nuggets, because every day I got to remind myself. Because you don't just know you're enough and that's it. Every day you got to work on it. It's like a muscle. Every day you got to work on reminding yourself daily, because stuff will happen. So that's I'm Enough. And then this is my most recent book, because part of my healing was juicing, you know. And so many people who have followed me, you know, their blood pressure has leveled off, cholesterol, I mean, all kinds of great things. And they've lost weight through juicing. And so that's this book, Juicing 101. And so those are my 3 books. Then my son, well, I have 4 books. So my son has written a couple of books. I brought one of his, but he's written 3 books now. He's a much better writer than I am, by the way. But this is his latest book. It's called Shea Butter. He's 23, so the language in here might not be palatable to some. He says some things. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so those are the parts. Oh, what's that?
Your mentors?
Oh, so I started a coaching program because, again, wanting to share what I've learned with other folks, because a lot of times people just need some tools. Mm-hmm. They need tools and some support and just a little guidance. And so I now offer a coaching program, and all that information is on my website. My website is thegoodlivingnow.com. The Good Living Now. We ain't living better later or in the future. We live in now. The Good Living Now. So thank you so much.
So you guys heard all the wealth. So this concludes what Harold LEFFALL, if you want to sow a wealth seed into his life at free will, you can go ahead and put it in a basket for him, or you can purchase it in his products. Let me tell you, I know I'm a survivor from COVID from using his products. Okay. It brought the mucus up and out of my son and I quickly. I believe it. And he sent it to me, and he didn't even know that he had sent me a message through email. He had no clue. And I received it at the right time. And I still take it today. And I'm part of his juicing group too, as well. And I feel so much better. Y'all know when you start menopausing, honey, look, all that belly start showing up. It's like, where all that coming from? But guess what? My gut feels cleaner. And it's gonna go. It's gonna go. So that's one book. The best juice ever. I juice now. At least 1 to 2 meals a day. Since we've been free. Amen. So I thank God for him. He came all the way from North Carolina. God put him on my spirit. I believe he walked divinely in wealth and health. He just told you his testimony. Sow your seed as led. Sow into wealth. I believe God. We had a glorious time earlier. I'm losing my voice. But the next session is Bishop and Lady Word Law. Put on your seatbelt. Put on your seatbelt because they're going to take us, and I have no clue what they're going to talk about. But I guarantee you, you will be blessed. Until then, we at Live in Palm Springs, the place you want to be next year. Blessings and love to you. Have a glorious evening and sign in with us at 8 p.m. with Bishop George Wordlaw and Lady Val Wordlaw. Blessings and love to you. Amen. Ooh, y'all. So